Welcome back to LePodcast episode 91. As always, you're here with your host, Hoop and Sainey. Today's deep dive is on the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. Much different than last week's 2012 Charlotte Bobcats. But I am very excited for this episode as we get to shed light on such a popular team. You'd figure that people would know all about them, but I do think there is an aspect to their incredible run that people overestimate as far as the team defense side of things and really how they won. How are you today, Sainey?
I'm good. I was waiting for the how are you? I'm great. I'm excited to do this. It's like yin and yang in the last two episodes, going from the Bobcats to a championship team. So this is pretty funny. I have like notes on like playoff predictions and stuff, which is something I did not do last week, of course. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, we were talking about Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Anthony Davis. Like we're talking about the Mavs possibly winning the finals.
Yeah.
So this is a polar opposite. But getting into the episode, just like last week, I kind of want to preface like the team as a franchise, and like since Dallas had no prior real hardware in terms of championship trophies before 2011, I think it's important to understand how much 2011 meant to Dallas. So they were founded, the Mavericks, in 1980, obviously before Mark Cuban owned them. After the first 3 years of kind of getting off the ground in the 80s, they made the playoffs 6 out of 7 seasons, which I think is very overlooked because their best two players were Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman. If you play 2K, you know who they are, but for the casual NBA fan, probably not. They actually, which I didn't even know this, their best season in 1988, they took Magic's Lakers to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals, which is pretty impressive. The Lakers obviously won the title that year, but that was like a really good season that I just never attributed to the Mavericks. I always thought they were doo-doo before Dirk. Well, in the 90s, they were doo-doo. 6 seasons under 25 wins in that decade is pitiful. Now, you'd think with all that losing, shout out, was it Brad Davis who was on those teams? I forget. There was some nice point guard with a mustache that was iconic as a Maverick when they were not very good. I'm pretty sure it was him. Or Brad Davis, maybe. Anyways, in the 90s, since they were so trash, they had a bunch of lottery picks. They turned out to be Jim Jackson, Jamal Mashburn, and Jason Kidd. It still didn't attribute to much winning. Jason Kidd, they dished to Phoenix after a couple of years. The Mavericks were just not good in the 90s. Anyways, in the 1998 NBA draft, this was after sucking for a while, the Mavs took Robert Traylor, nicknamed Tractor Trailer, with the 6th overall pick, but the Bucks made one of the worst trades in NBA history. The Bucks swapped Dirk Nowitzki, who they drafted 9th, for Traylor, and they also gave the Mavs, I don't even think he played a game for the Mavs, but this forward white dude named Pat Garrity. Basically, Robert Tractor Trailer for Dirk Nowitzki. In hindsight, that is one of the worst trades in NBA history. Now,
Cool
Mark,
name.
Fire name, actually.
Cool name.
Mark Cuban, now we're just going in like chronological order. So 98 draft happened. Mark Cuban bought the Mavs in 2000. Not that he's the one who turned them around. I think it was more Dirk. But Dirk went on with the help of the early All-Stars on the Mavs were Steve Nash, Michael Finley. When the starting point of 2001, the Mavs made the playoffs 10 straight years starting in 2001. And in each regular season, they won 50-plus games for a 10-year stretch after sucking. That is very impressive. Anyways, in 2006, the Mavs even made the finals. And it's funny, we're going to be talking about this in 2011, but they played the Heat. Not to mention, they had a 2-0 lead on the Heat. This was just with Dwayne Wade and an older Shaq. But Dwayne Wade averaged like 35. Led the Heat to 4 straight wins.
Like that series, like if Dwayne Wade stayed on that trajectory, he would have been one of the great. Like he could have been the GOAT.
Woo! If he still needed a jump shot, in my opinion. But Yeah, he was crazy. Anyways, in that finals, 3 of those wins out of the 4 that Miami won straight were a 3-point margin of victory. So that is one of the most heartbreaking finals losses for a team that had never won a finals. They'd been around for 26 years and they were about to win. But Dwayne Wade just ripped it from them. So it's funny that they played the Heat in 2011. But anyways, after 2006, Dirk in 2007 wins the MVP, and the Mavs are kind of on this revenge tour. They win 67 regular season games, which is by far a franchise record. But if you know anything about the We Believe Warriors, that's Baron Davis, Steven Jackson. Was Matt Barnes on that team?
Matt Barnes, yep.
Yeah. They got stunned by the 8 seed, which is crazy. And the Mavs were labeled chokers because of this. Now, the next 3 seasons, so 08, 09, 10, the Mavs also had early playoff exits. And by 2011, Dirk was now 32 years old, nearing the end of his prime. Still in his prime, but he's not MVP Dirk anymore. And the only other player from the 06 finals run that was still around after all these first-round exits, and I think they made the second round once, was Jason Terry, who's now also like 33 years old. JJ Barea was actually on the 06 team, but he was like 22 and didn't get any PT. But those were like the 3 guys from the 06 run that stuck around until 2011. So now that we're here in 2011, the Mavs are clearly just labeled as playoff chokers. I'm trying to think of like an equivalent for Dirk Nowitzki. It might be like a Joel Embiid type beat, where like you just going into the postseason, so no one was betting on the Mavericks. But their roster in 2011 was now Jason Kidd,
Joel Embiid type beat.
I'm just trying to say, like, if we're in the modern times, like we're going into the playoffs, it's like, yeah, Joel Embiid's not winning the title. Like that's how it was. Like Dirk's not winning the title.
It's a great comparison. I'm not hating on it. It's just first time I've ever heard it.
I was thinking of something on the spot. I thought that was pretty good. Anyways, their roster now in 2011, since they had lost a bunch of players from 2006, it's an old Jason Kidd, I believe he was 37, Deshaun Stevenson, Sean Marion, Dirk Nowitzki, Tyson Chandler. Out of all the dudes in the starting lineup, not Deshaun Stevenson, Caron Butler, I believe, started at the 2 spot that year until he got hurt, which I kind of just spoiled, but I'll go through it. Tyson Chandler was like the only sort of young dude at 27. They had a ton of vets. Everyone was in their 30s. JJ Barea was on the team. Jason Terry was a 6th man. They signed Peja, Ian Mahinmi, Brendan Haywood. Like it was just a very veteran-run team. Shout out Corey Brewer and Brian Cardinal as well. Brian Cardinal being the janitor. That's what. No. I didn't mean disrespect. That's actually his nickname.
Oh, okay.
I know that was not disrespect. Brian Cardinal's a dog. Now, sorry, this is like a yap session. I'm going on for so long. But as we're leading up to the playoffs, the EP is supposed to be on the playoff run, but I gotta set the table here. Now that we're in the regular season with this veteran run team that always loses in the playoffs, the preseason rolls around and the Mavs players met with each other to discuss their championship aspirations. A lot of you have probably heard the story, but I don't know if you know the origin. Jason Terry in that meeting was so confident, he went and got a tattoo of the trophy, of the NBA Finals trophy, on his bicep before the season even started. So it was because of that meeting that he just ran out and got the trophy tatted, which is wild. Now, in that season, the Mavs started off 24-5. They were just frying everyone. And they lost Caron Butler, who was not in his prime, so to speak, but he was still 15 a game and was a very key piece for that team. They lost him for the season, and they also lost Dirk for 9 games. And throughout that stretch, they went 2-9. Then they finished, I'm not going to go through the whole regular season, but anyways, they finished the season pretty strong at 57-25, which landed them a 3rd seed in the Western Conference. And before we get into the actual playoff matchups, Sainey is going to give us like a preface of what the league looked like in 2011 in terms of a playoff picture and what was expected of the teams.
Right. So the league in 2011, I'm going to start off with the Western Conference. It was a very competitive Western Conference. You had 5 teams with 50 wins and above. You had the Mavs, who were tied for the second seed with the Lakers. The Lakers just edged out, I think, in like the season series. But the Lakers also had 57 wins, so they're technically tied for the second seed. And then you had the Thunder trailing the second seed with 2 less wins at 55 wins. The East was slightly less competitive. There was 4 teams above 50 wins, 2 teams below 500, so they were like in the negatives when it comes to the regular season record, that were making the playoffs. And the Western Conference 11th seed would have made the playoffs in the Eastern Conference if you were to compare the records. Heading into the season, heading into the playoffs, I want to talk about a few injuries from notable players. Derrick Rose and Kobe Bryant both dealing with sprained ankles at some point during that playoff run. And when it comes to the Vegas odds, or like the odds in general to win the championship, I'm just going to name every team above the Mavs because the teams below them kind of don't really matter. But the Mavs were tied at 9th with 18-1 odds. Then you had the Nuggets at 8th with 18-1 odds as well. At 7, you had the Thunder, 18-1 odds again. At 6, you had the Magic with 15-1 odds. At 5, you had the Celtics with 4-1 odds. At 4, you had the Bulls with 3.5-1 odds. At 3, you had the Spurs, again with 3.5-1 odds. At 2, you had the Heat with 2.5-1 odds. And at number 1, the Lakers had a 2-1 chance to win the championship that season in terms of like betting and whatever. I'm not a betting guy, but those are the odds. That was the consensus. It was like the Lakers' year to win. Heading into the playoffs, it was predicted by 5 out of 6 analysts at Yahoo Sports that the Mavs would be the biggest upset, with the Blazers beating them in the first round. Notable names that predicted this were Greg Anthony and Woj. And Woj even said that they'd get swept.
Woj don't know ball, man.
Woj
Stick to breaking news,
like,
dog.
they actually just like did not care about the Mavericks. The consensus was that the Mavs would once again face first-round Rose heading into this playoff run. And the reason being for this is that since March 1st of that season, the Mavs actually lost every single game they played against a Western Conference playoff team to end off the season, which is a wild stat to think about. But that's kind of just like a general outlook at the playoff picture and what things look like heading into that playoff run.
Yeah, sorry, I just got to push a little my propaganda right now as a Julius Randle supporter.
Right.
When we bring up, right, you're talking about, oh, well, these guys had injuries. Derrick Rose and Kobe Bryant both sprained their ankle. Julius Randle, this last playoff run, sprained his ankle twice. The first to hold him out the last 5 games of the season, and he retweaked it against Cleveland. But we don't put a disclaimer on that. We just say he's booty cheeks. But we can put a disclaimer on Derrick Rose and Kobe Bryant when they sprained their ankles.
I'm not the one saying. I'm just saying what I got to say.
No, I'm talking to the world. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just had to get that out.
Talk your trash, Hoop. Talk your trash.
Upset Knicks fan.
Talk your trash.
It is crazy though. Like everyone acts like he was completely healthy, which he was totally not. Sorry about that. Anyways, going into the playoffs, the Mavericks, as Sainey said, matched up with the Portland Trail Blazers, who were the 6th seed. Now, a look at their lineup, it looked like Andre Miller, Wesley Matthews, Gerald Wallace, LaMarcus Aldridge, Marcus Camby. Now, this was technically still during the Brandon Roy era, but he was, his knees were like, I think it was cartilage that he was losing in his kneecaps, because I did some on Brandon Roy a while ago. Right. But this was a year where he was like starting to really lose it. He had 3 pretty good seasons. I think this was the 4th where he just really lost it. He was still playing. He was a 6th man, but he was definitely on the decline. He was not even starting anymore. Anyways, getting into this series, the Mavs win the first 2 home games pretty convincingly, and Portland takes Game 3. It's a 2-1 series in Portland for Game 4. And Brandon Roy, the 6th man, led a 23-point comeback in the 4th quarter for the Blazers to tie the series 2-2. That is a iconic game. If you go look up YouTube highlights, that is one that you've probably seen before, but to put it in context, like that's what happened against Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavericks, a 6th seed that was down 2-1, about to be 3-1. They had a 23-point comeback by, obviously Brandon Roy was looked at as the next whoever in Portland, but after the decline, it was kind of lost hope. It's kind of like that Derrick Rose game winner against Cleveland. Same vibes. Where like he just comes back after all the injuries and just does it again. But that was pretty incredible. Then the Mavs handled the Blazers in games 5 and 6, and so it didn't really matter. But that was a very heartwarming story. Dirk against the Blazers. I'm gonna I don't know if you have. I can bring up the stats for Dirk when you do your playoff series, Sainey. But a constant theme I want to do here was Dirk like quote unquote carrying the Mavericks through these playoff series, because I feel like at least the younger audience thinks that this was Dirk's title and Dirk's title alone. And something I want to show the audience is that I'm not going to spoil anything, but I do really think it was like a truly team win. Now, in some playoff series, Dirk went absolutely ridiculous.
Round two.
He went really ridiculous. Against the Blazers, he averaged 27 a game on 45, 44, 89, so he was incredible. But the team defense was pretty stout as well. But there goes the Blazers. We're on to round two.
Here's the thing. Dirk was phenomenal in round two. Okay, I think when it comes to like near the finals round, that's when I agree with you. It's a big ups on the Dallas team as a whole, right? But I do think you're giving a lot less credit than what Dirk deserves to get in terms of like this playoff run in general. Because I do think he was still like the head of the pack, and I still do think that without Dirk, they're not doing anything. Obviously, Dallas as a whole, they played
that's
great.
implied. That's implied.
Right. I just want to make sure, because you kind of hating.
No, I'm just trying to set the record straight.
You kind of hating. But so Dallas plays the Lakers. And not only do they play the Lakers, they sweep the championship favorites to advance to the West Finals. Pau Gasol was horrendous in this series. He averaged 18 for that season heading into the playoffs, and not once hit that mark in the 10 games he played in that playoff run. And he averaged 13 on 42% from the field during that series. At one point, the Lakers had a 16-point lead on the Mavericks in Game 1, lost the game by 2. Embarrassing way, one of the most embarrassing ways I've seen a championship favorite go out of a playoff series was in Game 4 when the Lakers basically got blown out by 40. It's very, like, when you go look at the box score, you go look at the highlights of that game, you go look at the final score, you're just like, bro. Kobe Bryant was literally the only guy trying to do anything.
Hey,
that team was just
Kobe
gutted.
had a sprained ankle though, right?
Yeah, but like still, bro, like that team, look, they didn't even try. Like you go look at that team, they were not trying. Dirk went on a tear. He averaged 25 and 9 in that series. And the Lakers also choked the lead they held in the fourth quarter of Game 3. They couldn't close out games at all that series, and the Mavs took advantage of it. It wasn't like the Mavs were just spanking them every game. Like the Lakers were putting up a fight. Fourth quarter comes, sleep. They weren't doing nothing. Mavs role player stepped up that series. Jason Terry averaged 20 on 68% from 3. And Peja Stojakovic went back to 2002 and was the Mavs' third leading scorer, and he shot 52% from 3. Now, I'm not going to say a big reason. The main excuse people give this Lakers team is that they had 3 straight finals runs, and then you had Kobe and Powell playing Olympic basketball during that time, and they were just
so
drained.
nasty.
I'm just saying that's the main narrative
That
around
is
that
so
series.
nasty.
Like you go look up anything, it's not like, oh, the Mavs beat them. It's more like, oh, the Lakers were tired. The Lakers were tired. They're old and they're tired. Metal World Pete's needs a nap. Like, fuck up. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use profanity there. But you know what I mean, right? Like, I give a lot more credit to Dallas than I do to giving the Lakers an excuse. But that's a quick recap of the second round. It's hilarious to see the team with 2-1 odds get swept in the second round by a team who the general consensus was they were going to get booted and another upset. But at the same time, I mean, they were tied for regular season records. It shouldn't come off as a surprise that Dallas put up a fight or even won the series. But that's a quick recap of round 2.
Well, first off, don't use regular season records as some sort of indicator, because when Toronto wins 60 games, but they got to see LeBron's face with 36 wins, that is not a fair series. So regular season wins don't mean squat. But I'm looking at the 3-point shooting right now. Dirk shot 73% from 3. This is against the Lakers in like a 4-game series. The team of the Dallas Mavericks shot 46% from 3.
Oh, I love that you bring that up. I forgot to bring up Dirk's splits. Dirk shot 57, 73, and 94. Like, I thought when I read those splits, I thought the 73 was his free throw, and they just messed up the... But then I was like, what's the 94 then? where's the 94 coming from? Like I looked at the numbers and I was like, what?
Yeah, because
You know what I mean?
73 is usually like a mid-tier center free throw percentage.
Free throw percentage, yeah. So I'm like, oh, he's a big man. Like maybe he just, like, oh, it's crazy.
I think it's better that we lined up the playoff series this way, so I can talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder instead of you having to.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I have to jog your memory. But in 2011, the Thunder, the lineup was Russell
Westbrook.
Thunder. Yeah, I had to throw a disclaimer in there.
The baby Thunder.
It was Russell Westbrook, Thabo Sefolosha, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, and Big Kendrick Perkins, my guy. And James Harden was coming off the bench. Game 1, Dirk Nowitzki. Oh, this sounds ridiculous. 48 points on 12 of 15 shooting. Now, despite having some great defensive big men out there, Serge Ibaka, Perk was a good anchor. I think Sefolosha was a pretty good on-ball defender. The man shot 24 free throws and made all 24. They could not guard Dirk. 48 points in 2011 is like 63 now. Like if you were to equate it, like that's
James Harden watched that game from the bench and thought, "That's what I'm gonna do."
Dirk also had 4 blocks. That was just a masterclass. But the Thunder do win Game 2 in Dallas. What's interesting about the series is that while Dallas wins the next 3, so it was tied 1-1, and they go into OKC, and the Mavs sweep it out, gentleman's sweep. But in Game 4, OKC was up 15 with 5 minutes left, and Dirk scored 11 points in the last 3.5 minutes, forced OT, and won an OT. But this means in Game 4, it would have been tied up 2-2 if the Thunder had held a lead. Which means even if you go back to Dallas and it's 3-2, you got to go back to OKC, which means we could maybe have a Game 7. And Dirk against the Thunder, once again, just frying everybody, 32 points per game, 56, 36, 96, just impeccable. But now we move on to the grand finale.
You proud of yourself?
I did. I was just being objective, like.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
you can make fun of me when like the Knicks don't have these opportunities to get fried this deep in the playoffs. So you can make fun of me all you want. I don't care.
Well, obviously we're at the grand finale and the peak of this episode. I think the biggest chunk of this episode is going to be talked about the most infamous final series of LeBron James' career, the 2011 Finals, where Dallas plays Miami in the finals and wins the series 4-2. This is obviously known, if you're not a basketball fan, if you don't know about this, the infamous LeBron James choke, LeChoke. This is when the choking memes, started to come up. LeBron, in this series, averaged 17.8 points per game on 47.8% shooting. He also had terrible fourth quarter stats. Like, this is like the notorious, like, LeBron James, Miami asked for $1 and LeBron gave them 3 quarters. A lot of people say Dirk went off, but the Dallas team as a whole turned up. Dirk actually shot poorly. This was the one series where he did not shoot great. He shot 41.6% from the field, but he just got to the free throw line a lot that series. Dallas in this series controlled the paint on the defensive end, and LeBron James, like if you go compare 2011 LeBron James postgame to 2012 LeBron James postgame, it's night and day. Like it is a completely different, like I don't know how to explain it. LeBron's postgame was terrible, and the Heat didn't have many perimeter threats at the time. I believe they had Mike Miller, James Jones, and Mario Chalmers, right? Like they don't have like 3-point threats. Dallas exploited LeBron's weaknesses, and Miami matched up horribly against Dallas. Sean Marion ended up having like the greatest defensive performance of his life matching up against LeBron James that series. And LeBron couldn't even take advantage of J.J. Barea in the post. It was terrible. It was
because it's interesting because Jason Kidd was also like basically if you got off Sean Marion, you were switching on to Jason Kidd. Yeah. And at 37, like he was legitimately like putting clamps on. And if you got past Jason Kidd, Sean Marion, then you have to face Tyson Chandler in the paint. So that defense was just spectacular.
They were great. Defensively, they were amazing. And Wade, surprisingly, nobody talks about this because everybody always wants to bring up that LeBron James choke. But Dwayne Wade actually played tremendous. He would have
been the Finals MVP if had they won.
He was amazing, yeah. And he tweaked his hip in Game 5 and just wasn't the same for the rest of that series. They were actually up. It was a tie series, 2-2. Dwayne Wade obviously tweaks his hip, and then it's just, once you have that, your main threat, and LeBron is just, shying from the big lights. Like, let's be honest, like, this is the one series where you can fully blame it on LeBron. It was just wraps after that point. Obviously, the infamous Dirk Game 4 fever game as well. Dirk had his own little flu game, that finals run, where Dirk was sick, still led his team to victory. LeBron and Wade we all know that, like, they were making fun of Dirk, obviously coughing prior to the game. And then LeBron James ends up having the worst game of his career. He had 8 points, 3 for 11 shooting, and Dirk put up 21 and 11. Dwayne Wade, I want to go over. So he averaged 26.5, 7, and 5 that series. Like, Dwayne Wade was crazy, and I believe in Game 4 he had 32. Like, Dwayne Wade was turning up. LeBron James wasn't. Chris Bosh also had like 24 in that Game 4. Like, it was it is hilarious to think back on that. Out of the big three, the player who made them lose that series was LeBron James. Jason Terry was also the X factor, averaging 18 points per game off the bench.
Didn't he shoot like 47% from 3?
And he was just going crazy. He would not miss a shot. I mean, that whole playoff run, he would have missed a shot. But in the finals, he really turned up when it matters. And Dallas wins 4-2. Again, it comes down to LeBron James. That was by far you could say it was a changing moment for LeBron's career, because after that, it was just smoke. I think from like 2012 to like, 2020, we got the repercussion, the domino effect of that 2011 Mavs.
Yeah, but and one thing also is, like, why are we making this a LeBron episode? But when you think about,
like, let's be fair, like, the finals was LeBron. Like, it was LeBron.
But then you talk about, like, I don't know how many people attribute this to LeBron, but when they lost to the beautiful basketball Spurs, like, because we already talked about how peak for peak, there's not many beating that team. LeBron alone is not beating that basketball team when they're clicking.
Right.
So, like, are we saying, because, like, basically how many chokes does LeBron have in his finals history? Are we
only
attributing...
one for me?
Okay.
What are you gonna say?
Well, I don't think it's fair. I think based on a talent perspective, obviously the Heat should have cleaned house. But I personally never really liked the LeBron Dwayne Wade fit. I think they mesh well from an entertainment standpoint, and they're dope. But, like, I always prefer. I mean, they at that point in their career, 2011, were either of them like above average jump shooters?
No,
well above
LeBron
average jump
was
shooters.
terrible. Had a terrible mid-range game.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it developed, but I never liked that in the first place. So in terms of, like, if I had the basketball sort of, like, if I had been around for as long as I've been now and I can understand, like, how teams mesh, I would probably say that, the Spurs have a really good shot of beating the Heat in 2014. Not that they should win. But I wouldn't attribute that to a LeBron choke. I was just seeing where you...
No, LeBron has never played a bad finals run except for 2011. Every other finals run, he played great. You can't blame him for any finals run but 2011.
07, he was a little...
07, bro, he wasn't even supposed to be there. Look at the team he dragged there. And they played the Spurs.
You can't
They played the Spurs, bro.
Hold on.
They played the Spurs, bro. I don't blame LeBron for 2007. I don't.
No, you're changing the argument. I'm just playing devil's advocate now. You said that LeBron had never played a bad final series aside from 2011. When I bring up 2007, he played the Spurs, though.
Bro, he averaged...
It was not that.
Oh, yeah, he was pretty...
Man.
You know what? He didn't play great in 2007, fine. But I still don't attribute that loss to him.
You know what? Tim Duncan's the GOAT. Screw LeBron.
Yeah, you know what? I take it back. He played bad in 2007. He played really bad in 2007. But it's the Spurs, and he had the Cavs, bro. Like, what is he supposed to do?
Not shoot 35% for the field? What do you shoot from the field?
Who else is going to shoot? Mo Williams? Like, come on. You got to give him some sort of credit. Like, well, like...
Hey, no,
come on.
Hey, I'm just checking your statement. I'm not trying to...
No, you're right. I take it back. 2007, he played bad, but I don't blame him for 2007.
Sure.
I only blame LeBron for 2011.
Okay.
I'll give him that. But let's talk about Dallas because this is a Dallas deep dive. Again,
Nah, it's not.
we got a LeBron. It's all about LeBron. Everything is about LeBron. Like you said, I mean, I think this was Dallas doesn't. I have a crazy statement to make. I don't even want to make it. I have a question. It's not a statement. I'm not saying this. I have a question for you. Who is more important in that series? Dirk or Jason Terry?
No. Don't be like that. You know what I would say is that Jason Terry did his role better than Dirk did his, if we're talking the finals.
Yeah.
In terms of like what is expected of said player, Jason Terry by far exceeded all expectations of his 6-man role.
Right.
Dirk did, I think, against the Miami Heat what he was supposed to do. I don't think Dirk like shrunk. I think if you were to look at Dirk for who he was as an MVP, but has had first round exits, his playoff performances have not been stellar. You can say that he's kind of been a playoff dropper, not in the sense that like he's a choker. We talked about this with James Harden, how a lot of times how an offensive engine who is not surrounded by other dynamic offensive talent, with Allen Iverson, their percentages naturally go down. So in the first couple playoff series, he overperformed. But against the Miami Heat, against
he just performed how we had expected.
I think you performed how you would expect him to perform. But Jason Terry exceeded all expectations. I'm not saying Jason Terry was better than Dirk.
I know. I just wanted to say I don't believe it either. I just wanted to say something crazy.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not doing that for clicks. I'm not.
But I mean, do you have anything else to add on? I don't know. I know you said you had some fun facts.
Yeah, I mean, in game 1, Dirk tore a tendon in his left middle finger, which didn't really aggravate him. He just played through it. And in game 2, I don't know if you mentioned it, but the big comeback, it was like a 20-2 run in the fourth. Because LeBron, I believe, did have a solid game 1. And then after the game 2 comeback, everything fell apart. So in terms of like LeBron just completely sucking, like, yeah, he was pretty close to it. But I think he just shrunk under the lights instead of just went out there and pooped himself.
It was the pressure because he didn't shoot terribly. He just wouldn't shoot. Like his fourth quarter, like if he just played how he played in the first 3 quarters, I think he would actually have a decent finals run.
Yeah, and I think it also would have been more beneficial to him if Dwayne Wade wasn't playing as well as he was, because like, if he's cooking, he's already been in the finals. He's been a finals MVP. I would just let him do everything. I think that was kind of to his detriment.
Yeah. LeBron James deep dive at the end of it.
It all turns back to LeBron.
It always. But I think that's all we have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a great episode. A little shorter than usual, but obviously it was really just a deep dive on a playoff run, right? We're not going over a whole player's career, so it makes sense. But we appreciate you guys for listening as always, and make sure to obviously interact with the posts. I mean, obviously on Spotify, I know they say this every episode, but we do read every single comment you guys leave on the YouTube comments and the Spotify. You can like react to episodes, and we also ask questions that you guys can interact with. It's our like way of kind of allowing you guys to connect with the episode even more. We appreciate everything you guys do. Make sure to rate 5-star on Spotify. But I mean, other than that, we appreciate you guys for listening, and we will see you guys for episode 92. Peace.